and welcome to Josef's Model Railway and Toy Room. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You don't need to like, follow, or subscribe to any of the videos I put out there. Just put them out there where I can. Have a holly jolly great time doing so. Now, part 2 in our adventure of putting in this bowling alley. Part 1, as you will recall, we'll pick it up from there. I had just finished all the earthworks and I just plonked the box down with the Woodland Scenics trees. Let's get that box open, dive in and get into finishing up this thing and seeing what we have exactly created now. Not wasting too much time in anything else because you just want to see the rest of this video. What an inspirational distraction. And here we are taking a bit of evergreen styrene and just adding what would basically be a PVC downpipe for stormwater heading somewhere down there. Now we're going to come in and start layering this up with our crushed leaves. And I think that's a fantastic appearance we're starting to build up here. Not quite done yet. Let's pay attention. These are the sort of trees I was chasing, and we'll even come in as I pull over past some on the way to another job. And let's have a look what we can create with creating the bottom of these trees. And that will wrap up part 1. We'll stop it with our trees arriving now. And now part 2, as we pick up exactly where we left off with that tremendous box of trees. So let's get this box of trees unpacked, and they're not quite what I wanted. I actually wanted the lodgepole ones. I did reorder some, but we're going to use them somewhere else. But you can see it was what I had in the coastal section, and it is what I wanted. But let's make do with what we have at the moment and start getting this laid out accordingly. A series of coloured push pins that I'm using to represent the different sizes and types of trees, so I know where and what's going to go where as we start preparing the ground layout for this. And you can see those pins in fine form here. Now that we know where our trees are going to go and they're marked in a colour sequence with those pins, we're now going to lay the glue down to lay down some static grass. Now the process is we put the glue down, we shake down the 2mm, we come back, spray over, and then put in our 4mm accordingly. Now for those of you that are wondering, he constantly does it and does it very quickly, hasn't really gone into a lot of depth. I haven't done the exact video on static grass, unlike other things that we've covered. But don't worry, I have been collecting up material, and we're going to cover the static grass process that I've been using in its own video later on. I must have used this static grass at least 50 times across this layout, and I'm still yet to be convinced I've got the winning formula. Still, here we go. It is advised to use a static grass glue. Look, any glue would do, but conductivity, and apparently it's just better. I'm yet to be convinced. But here we are. We lay a base down and we sprinkle the grass on. And as you can see there, we're just sprinkling those pieces of stones that I had sifted through, as you saw in part 1. Now we start joining that together. And I really think this is really starting to bring this section to life. Hopefully you can appreciate what I've basically been up to here. It might seem a little bit strange. You saw the scene fit quite well, but in actual fact, this little lip that we're trying to do will create that nice segregation. If we need to remove the board, it'll sort of slide down and feels like it's meant to be there. Now, what we just did is, while that stonework has been filtered out and we laid some smaller ones and some larger ones and then smaller ones on top, I did just go into a few areas with the static grass. Now, it might look a bit messy at the moment, and we're going to come in and get a detailed suck up from that at the moment. But we can't do that until the bottom layer has completely dry. But I think that this looks absolutely fantastic, and that's going to give a nice little segue into the scene of what we're doing now. Oh, that static grass really does look spectacular. You know what? I'm going to stop talking for a minute. Take a series of toothpicks and dip the ends in either yellow, blue, pink, green or white paint, just for identification now, because those pins are going to get in the way. And what we're going to do is take a bit of our scenic cement or diluted PVA and just a few blobs here that I decant from the bottle, and then I'm just going to brush around with a little brush. And at this point, all we're going to do is take our crushed leaves, as we've talked about in an early episode, and we're just going to dump it at the bottom. You can also come back and bleed a bit more scenic cement on it, as I'm doing here. And you're just going to really get a great result at the bottom once you've left it overnight to dry. Well, I've gone through this process of doing the bottom of the trees before. And generally what I like to do is take a fixative spray, and I'll take a tree. These aren't the trees I wanted. I'm so disappointed. I knew the ones I wanted from the coastal scene. I went to Woodland Scenics to match them up, but I ended up with the wrong one. Anyway, usually I get the tree and then somewhere over a bin, a quick spray with the fixative spray across the trunk. Some crushed up leaves from the garden that we whiz through the wife's blender that we don't say anything about. We just give it a thorough good clean. Happy wife, happy life. And that's basically what we do, and leave them to dry. Because we've got a lot to do, we're doing a slightly different approach on this one. This is just our scenic cement that we mix up. 1 part Mod Podge matte, couple to 2 parts water, a few drops dishwashing liquid. We're going to dip the tree in. You may notice as I'm going to pull this out, I quickly tip the tree upside down. I'm just trying to get a bit of that glue to run down into the trunk to give me a bit more definition to it. It may not seem like a big deal, but if we come over and look back at the trees I wanted to use on the coastal scene and what I did to try and get the bark running up nice and higher up that tree, that was the approach I basically used to get that done. So we're literally dumping it into the glue, straight upside down, a little bit of a twist if possible, and I can see it's running all the way through there. And then when I come up a little bit higher, and yes, you can just plunge this straight in. The problem is it doesn't quite end up where I need. I can give it a quick tap across the bottom and they're going to fall. And it's probably, as you can see, it's pretty much just sort of here's what I'm trying to catch here. Again, with our oak tree, we'll plunge him in. We don't worry too much about some of the gums per se, because they've got that almost fresh bark that I'm chasing, a bit like the sycamores. So as we leave them to dry and we just come in on them here, I think you can pretty much pick up the little bit of detail that we're up to at the moment. It doesn't have to be perfect and precise, but you can see it really does elevate it, that on the right angle, it actually looks like a real tree. Not happy with the shade of green, but as I said, here we are. We're now just going to come in with an LED floodlight for the back car park area, and we'll just thread that in and pre-wire that. I'm also going to do a bit more electrical wise here, but anything's going to diminish the scene, so I'll leave it that way for the minute. This is just some Woodland Scenic standard off-the-shelf chain link fencing. It's not too bad. I do like that detail. Now we're going to start to pop our trees in. I just dip them in a little bit of glue so they're going to sit into place nicely. Try and keep them reasonably straight, but again, in real life they're generally pointing to the sky, but and mix them up a bit just to really break it up and look like they were planted here a long time ago, and this is where they've ended up. So I really think we're looking good. Tried my hand at painting some stock standard plastic pallets off the shelf. I don't think they look all too bad. There's no method there. I just grabbed a few bits of paint and mixed them all together and hoped for the best. Some fine touches now, a few tufts here and there, a little bit of hedging and flower work for the entrance of the main car park. We're just going to pop those pallets into place, maybe a skip bin in the corner, and now it's looking quite magical. I think this is the last bit. I wasn't going to do it. We're just going to pop a tree here just to break it up. I've crumbled off the concrete, which looks quite good, but it just seems as a safety thing. I'd hate for someone to walk in and just go down there. At least a little bit of hedging and that we break it up. So I've just taken a small little pre-done tree, added my usual bark to it, and I trim one side off because it's going to stab into the embankment. Okay, well, as we wrap up, we're now ready to sit it in place again. We've got our lead ready to go here. We're still going to remove this for a separate shoot I need to do, so we're not going to lay it in tonight. But the other thing is, we obviously have our floodlight over here, and we've got our lead in for our Woodland Scenics Just Plug lighting system, to which we'll just make the quick release connection using one of our splicer plugs, which has plenty of room to sit. I just wanted to point this out because if you're wondering why I carved this out, I wasn't sure what additional lighting may need to happen, and we may still need to do something. So in which case, I did always factor, because we're going to come in under this trapdoor and get to here, I always did leave enough room for putting another distribution block here. And as you can see, I carved it out. Not that we'll open this one up, you can clearly see that it would fit nicely inside. So that was the plan there. Looks like we might not need it. We're just going to have a plug sitting in there. But the whole idea is it is quick release. I'm not in any hurry to replace the scene per se, but what I love about building in this modular way is, should I change my mind and say, I think I want to do a different scene here, I can lift it out and interchange and build another one if I so choose. And I like the idea. Maybe I don't want a bowling alley here, and instead I want a Pizza Hut here, and I swap it out. The whole idea is it's a wonderful thing, and this way you can always keep your layout fresh and interesting if you start getting bored. Now this is absolutely critical. 4.5 volt transformer will be required for the bowling alley itself. The rest continues on with the standard Woodland Scenics Just Plug 12 volt, 14 volt, whatever it is. And as you can see, we've been busy wiring in some extra Just Plug lighting hubs, mostly to do with faulty towers and whatever else we're going to get up to on that end of the board. All right, it's time we put this thing in. I'm going to put it in now and install it and wire up the lights, mostly so we can get the final shots here. However, what I'm actually going to do once I've got those shots is we're going to take the building off again like we've had it, and we're going to take this module out as we carry on with faulty towers and things like that. I really don't want to be bumping anything unnecessarily, and I'm still going to get back to the batter up chippy box scene, which I'm very excited about how we're going to tie this one in now that we have our beautiful bowling alley billboard. But just for the minute, let's show you the magic of what we're up to. And I'm going to zoom in a second when I join it up, but I'll just point out that I did just pre-tin these wires up. I think just so it's easier to get in and out. You don't want to have to keep chopping and chopping down till you've run out of cable. Let's get you in on this electrical hookup. No science in plugging in the building, but this little bit with a little floodlight over here. Of course, this particular wire for the floodlight is basically hair thin. Barely make out which is black and which is red, but somehow you always get there in the end. Right, plenty of room to wire additional things in. And just quickly, we're going to spin the camera around. You can see, as you'll see in another video, we've now cleared, ready to start doing our faulty towers. But I did just want to point out the access here of what's going on. Basically, there will be a lot of wiring happening for faulty towers, the building, the landscaping, and some other surprises. What we're going to do is, the way it's going to be built, those wires will just drop straight underneath using this section of the cavity. This bit here is mostly done. However, I do have some plans for doing some other maintenance and things in this part. So you can see I went to the extra trouble of just making some additional holes to keep everything separate where necessary. But it's quite logical. The black lead here is for our 4.5 volt. We still have the signal wires traveling over here, and the pedestrian crossing lights feeding over accordingly, and the red and black for the floodlight that we're doing here at the moment. It may look a little untidy, but I assure you it is quite tidy and very, very organized. We're also going to have this modular so that the faulty towers section and the styrene will literally lift off and we can get to the trapdoor a lot easier, unlike the Dad's Army cricket pitch section, which while we can get to the trapdoor, it's a little more fiddlier. Well, I've brought you down on this camera angle as we're now going to do our maiden voyage of switching it on. Lights in the building and this one here. I think what's important is, as you can see, there's a skylight to look through, and I kind of like that feature. And that's why choosing this particular floodlight, which is an N-scale one, I think works better in my favor, because otherwise if it's too light, it's distorting the image. So we're going to have to turn the lights off or dim them down, and now we're going to turn it on and just fine tune that accordingly. And then we'll have these final shots sweeping around so you can see exactly what it looks like. Fingers crossed. Ridiculously bright, as a matter of fact. There's not much I can do about that, but I think what we will do is add an additional switch. We are going to have to add an on-off switch for that separately, because sometimes I might not want that on. Now that I've finished falling down. Okay, that's not too bad. We probably will put a switch in. We don't need it on all the time. Let me grab this camera and start getting some shots for you now. I'm going to take you on a quick walk around. So here is our back area. As you can see, I think that wall is screaming out for some graffiti or something on it. So we'll check out how that's going to go. Let's have a look. The detail inside that bowling alley is rather good as we look through the window. Nice and clear there. Let's just come in over on the top where our skylight is. Those LED lights, which are a little bit bright. In fact, if I just swing down and up, they've used them to illuminate this area, and while it's good lighting, it's always like I need a tint to reverse the reflection away. But as we come around now, a little bit of ambient lighting on the outside. I do like that blue. That really did turn out quite well, the way they've done that. Beautiful carpet coming in. Let's just get a bit of a focal point in there if we can. He's going through the door, so really that really looks quite good. We come around now. A few people outside having a chat. May still put a car parked here. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do yet. I'll leave that one aside for a minute, but as you can see, very, very bright. And let's bring you around now. I think the car park really looks quite good at night. You can really see the texture, and yes, I'm going to say it, the definition. I think that really worked out well, where you can see from the pre-done model there's not a lot I can do. Well, there is, but I really want to leave it reasonably pristine. There's our dog there. As we swing around to the side and to where the trains would come down and go past, that sort of just, that really will frame it up quite nicely as they swing down and come down through the section. Our billboard, which is not on, will be illuminated, and I really think we're gonna, the light of the train swinging around will really bring a wonderful scene.
And now, the final phase of my plan.
Sorry, it's league night.
Boy, this is depressing. Hey, I know what would cheer us up. Bowling!
Hey, Homer, that's 4 strikes in a row. You got a perfect game going.
Really?
Careful what you say, Letty. You jinx it.
Oh, right, sorry. Miss! Miss! Sorry, I was pulling the waitress. This split you sold me is making me choke.
Lenny?
What? Paid $7.10 for this split.
Will you at least call it a banana split, you dumbwad?
Hey, spit Give me your gutter mouth. Ow, ow.
Hey, wait a minute. You're gonna need a lane.
No thanks. I'm just here out of spite.
Can't bowl without a lane.
Well, all right.
Okay, here you go. You keep score on this. What size shoes you wear?
Never you mind.
Can't wear street shoes on the lanes. You gotta wear bowling shoes. What size, please?
13 double A.
13 double A? This is the closest I've got. A 9 and a 15.
Thank you. Mister, I'm gonna warn you. Brunswick.
It's not much of a life when you're just a pretty face.
Just to be whoever you are is no disgrace. Don't be scared if you don't fit in. Look who's in the reject bin. It's the Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Dolls like you and me. Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Made him perfectly. So if you got a bump on your nose or lumps on your toes, do not despair. Be like the Raggy Dolls and say I just don't care. 'Cause Raggy Dolls.
So even with the lights off, which is how most of the time it may well be, I think you've still got, with that skylight, you're still creating this wonderful image, and you still get, look at that, that detail is brilliant in there. And I really think that's probably one way we're going to be focusing on it. And I apologize that some of the shots aren't quite the way I want it because there's junk in the background or it's unfinished on this side. But I guess what I'm trying to get across here is that the channel's far from ever being completed, as I've mentioned. You can just imagine when these scenes start being completed up and the backdrop is done over here, we'll be able to come back and get some incredible images of what's going on at the moment as we keep continuing bit for bit. I think it's the grand plan that people are probably starting to see in their heads as this layout really starts to come into a world of its own, literally. I think it's just fantastic. And while I'm not 100% happy with those trees, I have got the ones I wanted beside me in a box, but I think we will integrate that maybe on the other side. Let's not take up any more of your precious time and keep the magic happening. Girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, that of course is going to do it for another video. I could not believe that here we are with a bowling alley on the model railway. It's hard to believe that these wild ideas in my head just keep undoing themselves and keep finding these little homes. And I think what is a great testament to the image you're most likely seeing on the other side of this camera is the fact that we are really creating some amazing progress and detail, I think, to the best of my ability, and I'm really happy with this layout. However, can you imagine, even though the layout's not finished, how amazing it would look if I pull my finger out and get a backdrop going? Don't worry, eventually there'll be one here, and for most people it's the first thing that goes down. But I think, as you've discovered, my entire layout build seems to be working backwards to what everyone else does. I like to think at least that keeps most of you entertained and you're not just seeing the same as you do in other videos. I try and keep them interesting. I certainly do my best. And I've got some more wonderful surprises coming up for you very soon. In the meantime though, I certainly hope you've taken something away from this one. Up to and including, I'm also noodling with the idea of having a triggered button that will activate a sound file underneath that literally, with the bowling alley, someone just needs to come along, push the button, and it'll have the sound clip of the pins clattering in a strike with the audio sample of James Brown's legendary "I Feel Good," da-na-na-na-na-na-na, something like that. Certainly would be something, wouldn't it? Who knows what's coming up in this wonderful toy room? We have a lot of journeys still to explore, and I certainly look forward to seeing you in the next one. Please do stay safe. Doodles!